Hello, my name is Ricardo Batista. I'm one half of Onda Amarela. Anna is not, uh, didn't make it, it couldn't be here today, which makes me very nervous because she's the brains of the whole operation. So I'm the body, exactly, only the body. I'm not sure I have anything interesting to say. We're a company based in Portugal. We do participatory art, usually based on the music language, and we operate in very diverse environments with very diverse outputs of our work. And that's it. Very happy.
Maybe you can, thank you. Maybe you can just dive a little bit into one example of your work, just to understand your methodology, because I think everybody of you has a different methodology of approaching this trend. So maybe just as you can give an example of some project with it.
It's hard, a little bit hard, because we have very diverse approaches.
Good one.
But what I can say is, like these guys presented yesterday, we kind of have some kind of values or principles, not marks, but some values and principles that kind of lead the way. So for us, what actually we usually do and we think we connect is places, people, and art. So we operate usually going to a place, meeting people, and creating, inventing something new there with that group. So our participation idea is a participation on the creation, and not on as an audience. So our method usually is to go to these places for some time beforehand. Sometimes we have a due date, an output date. We know we have a performance. A lot of times, that most of our performances are one-offs, so they happen once. So that changes a lot of things. So we usually go there for. Sometimes we do some research, all the kind of research we can. We meet people that show us other people and other people and other people, and we invite everyone to join. So most of our projects are, we have always an open call. So even if you don't belong to any artistic community, a theater group, an orchestra, you can join. But also, we try to involve as much people as possible. Sometimes we have 10 people, sometimes we have a lot, 200. Yeah, we had huge things. Because if you open the door, you have to now manage. So our process is that, and then we start doing questions like these guys to people. We have a lot of games that we create with really simple questions that everyone can relate to, like what makes you happy regarding this place, or what worries you, and then we start from that creating immediately things. Sometimes these things are not the final thing, are not that important for the final output, but we create immediately, invent things just to put everyone on this mindset that, what I have to say can mean anything and can be relevant towards an invention, a collective invention of something. And then we follow that definition of community, that it says that community is the feeling of us. So we try to create that feeling of us, and after that, we developed, like everyone, a new performance, a new output, something that everyone identifies with, and we present it. Sometimes it's a performance, most of the times it's a music-based performance, but we had, audio walks, tours in the city, we had books, CDs, videos, documentaries, all sorts of outputs.
Hi, my name is Nicola Borghesi. I work with Enrico Baraldi. Our name is company is Kepler 452. We come from a theater background and we work in what can end up in the label of documentary theater. You sometimes, most of the times, participatory theater too. Basically, we spend like on the Mariano. We spend time in different communities we're interested in, and could be 20 days or 1 year. It depends on the community and on the project. And then we try to tell on stage what we experience, starting from the point that people usually has no time to experience what we take time to experience, and so we tell people what we have passed through, and the output of these researches can be different. So we have shows with just actors, or just one actor, usually myself. Or we can bring on stage people who are not actors, but are experts of something, like in our last show called Il Capitale, from the famous book by Karl Marx, maybe you've heard about. We have been living for a couple of months in an occupied factory in Italy. It's something that still happens sometimes. And we brought on stage with us some metallurgical workers that were occupying that factory. Or sometimes we have we work with audio guides through the urban space. Enrico, you can go on. Ti aspettavi.
For me. Hello, hi, good afternoon. I'd say pretty much the same that Nicola said, but my name is Enrico, not Nicola. And you said pretty much everything. I think we have time to go deep into our practices. I want still time now just to say that we work since 2015. We've done many things, many different outputs. Basically, we can divide our practices in two. The one that Nicola was describing, and some other works were much more in the direction that you mentioned before, involving like large groups of participants in our. Never 2000. We never reached so.
Not yet.
Not yet. So yeah, basically this is the frame of our work.
Did you start like this? Like, did you start with this practice, or you come from a different background and then at a certain point you discovered it was something that was interesting for you?
We basically both come from a very theater background. I had a training in directing, and Nicola had a training in acting, but because it was quite some time ago. And we started like in different periods of our life, but we met artistically. We met each other thinking about this documentary participatory theater, and we started to work on this together.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marleen Scholten. I'm an actress and co-founder of the company Wunderbaum. We are based in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, and we are a collective since 2001, and we're still together. And actually what we make is, I would call, social-political work, but we try never to do that without humor. We think humor is very important, especially these days. And what we do is we make a lot of community work, site-specific or in theaters. And for us, as we are talking about participatory arts, can mean a lot of different things. It can be that we work with people that really are involved with us on stage or on the location that we play. But it can also be that it's just out of interviews, that we just use material that represents the story of someone. Yeah, that's actually what we do, and we do that because we think it's for us very fundamental to be connected to the society, and that art is not something that is apart from society, but that it's inside. And so that's why we always try to involve society in our work.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Julia.
This is driving me to something I was discussing before with Ílhavo from 2015 Circus. Because when we talk about participatory arts, one of the questions that came to us was, why do we need it? Theater and in general live performing arts are already normally, like, they do have inside the concept of being, of gather community. It's the proprium of theater is that, like the ich et nunc of the performance, of gathering a community. So why do we need now, in this moment of our lives, as a society, Occidental society, of course, you have to speak for us, this form of arts in which we bring to another level the participation of the communities that are not just an audience enjoying the moment, but raising voice or taking space, or why? Why do you do that? It's free if you have answers to that.
Yeah, maybe I already said it more or less, what I think. In a way, sometimes it's just not enough. I have the feeling that we are not enough as artists. Maybe that's one of the main reasons that we are just too interested in the real world, I think. But it doesn't mean, of course, that it always has to be, that they have to be inside your performance. I think that we talked about this yesterday as well. For me, participatory can also be, for example, an education program. No, that you make a performance and that you say, it's not enough that maybe audience will come. You have to make a program and you have to go before to a city and to really create something before you go there and not think that people will automatically come. So for me, that is also, for example, a way of always fighting for, that we do this for and with people, and never without them. So maybe that's for us why.
Yeah, it's clear. And for instance, I didn't experience your work. I didn't have the chance yet. But maybe like working with local communities, like thousands or hundreds of people, it also leads to a political approach to that.
Yeah, I relate with what Marlene was saying, and there's maybe a two-part answer to that. I don't know if I'm going to be articulated, but for once, there's the artistic thing. For us as artists, the material that comes from a community that needs to put on the table their desires, anguishes, needs, their thoughts, usually is very interesting and much more interesting than, I have to say, the bubble in which the artistic thing usually is, and brings really, for us, and maybe not just music-wise, real freshness of subjects, of perspectives, of views, sometimes really interesting things that we like to work with. That's one thing. But there's another thing that don't mix up this with social work or anything, because that's not what we do, that's not our skills, but there's on the human rights, manifesto. There's something about the right to culture, to everyone to have access and provide their own culture as a cultural provider in a way that raises the question of accessibility. That for us is very, very important in arts, as an artist, but and also in society, the accessibility, the art to be accessible. And there's, you know, a lot of debate about cultural democracy, the difference between that and cultural democratization. And at least in Portugal, we argue a lot about these places, what we call, you know, culture palaces that were built for a very elitistic art form to perform there. And so there's a lot of things to be said through art about accessibility. So that's why we try every time to open the door to everyone and then to try to manage that. So there's something about accessibility too that is very interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very clear and sharp. And for example, at your show, I had the chance to see your show, your last show, El Capitale, and when I was there were the workers actually witnessing, well, being in the audience, and I think for some of them could have been the first time that they enter a national theater, a theater in general. So it can be an audience development tool, but I guess there's a big risk in having this perspective on what you're doing. So maybe you can.
No, I think that this desire can probably I mean, participatory theater didn't exist like in the way it exists 30 years ago. Probably has something to do with the fact that at least in Italy, I'm speaking for Italy, but it looks like in general, theater itself as an art is less and less relevant in the world. So before, a theater artist knew that his position in the society was to prepare a show, and there were a lot of people who wanted to watch it. And when I started my path in theater, it was not like that, simply. So probably it has something to do with the fact to look for people, which does not mean necessarily, you know, make some operation of audience development. I discovered the existence of the expression audience development while I was already doing audience development, and I think I was doing a better audience development when I didn't know the existence of the expression audience development. No, it's like in Italy we say, maybe you say it all over the world, sex is something that more you speak about it, less you do it. And probably audience development is a bit the same thing, you know. If you want to do audience development, that's I think is worse than you doing by chance audience development. And another reason I think for which we do participatory theater is that in this moment of the history of capitalistic system, one of the projects of the capitalistic system is to divide us into bubbles, and different social classes are more and more divided. They never meet anywhere. Theater is usually a place meant for upper classes with, you know, cultural tools and certain studies. And so the risk is to, you know, as you were saying, live in our bubble and talking to ourselves about and going in the reality and looking for something different, something non-identical, Adorno would say. I think it's essential, like to start taking care of something that is not just, you know, ourselves and our little uninteresting, sad, depressive first world problems.
I don't have the word in English, but for the ones who are Latin speakers, autoreferencialità, how do you say that?
To auto-reference.
Auto-reference?
Self-reference?
Self-reference? Like, Self-referential.
Self-referentiality. Does it exist?
Self-referentiality.
I don't know how the
Doesn't sound
native
good.
English speakers can stand this kind of conversation while I'm talking
Let's
in
debate
English,
that.
like it's must be ear bleeding. Going a little bit more concrete, one of my curiosity, but I think it could be like a useful for everybody to know, is what do you think you need or is needed to be somebody working in this field and using those practices in her or his work? Meaning, do you need to be very empathic? Feeling the others, feeling the others.
I like English.
Or do you need not to be because you have to be, you know, a bit detached from what you're working on? Or do you need to be very, I don't know, a leadership with a strong leadership? Or I would like to know how do you relate to your role in your work, and what do you think is useful for the ones who want to try to follow the same path, to be like or to experience.
Should I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, the first thing I would say always that it has to be real. You have to be really interested. I mean, if you're not really interested, but you think, that's cool, let's do it with other people, then please don't, because then you will be fucked, I'm afraid. So I think there's not a rule of saying being empathetic, or you really have to be interested in the persons or the material that you want to say something about it, and then even if after that you have no idea what you're going to say about it, that's the next problem. But I think it starts from something real. And I think, and that's maybe, I'm happy that we are talking, but actually I'm very interested in what they think, because they come from a circus world and we don't.
After we ask.
After we ask. No, because I think for us it's sometimes easier, because of course, if we put somebody on a stage and say, hey, you're going to be yourself and you're going to talk like yourself, for example, that's something doable. But for example, the show we saw yesterday, making this balancing act, what can you ask somebody who didn't study that? What can this person do? So I thought, it's also really a different genre that we have in a way. So that's maybe where my advice stops a little bit, because then I'm actually very curious how you can translate what we do into a circus context, because it's really, I think, another context. And it was also what Anna, is your name, right? What you said, I was curious this morning about this performance in the manege, the horse, and that you said the people working there at some point even influenced the dramaturgy. And then I thought, till there I can completely follow, but then probably it would be hard if you say, and then they have to participate physically in the work. But I was curious if that's, then what is then the next step if you say we want them to be with us on the stage? Yeah, is it clear?
Keep them with you on the stage. What are your, not secrets, but I mean, I don't want to seem cheesy.
Yeah.
It's like, what are your tools? What do you think you need to have in your backpack? Some suggestion, I don't know. Think about it. Maybe the guys have
maybe somebody has
to say.
No, just the first word that comes to my mind is time. What we need to practice art in this way, in this direction, is time to do it. Of course, there are some situations and some projects in which having a short time to create a community, to know people, and to build 1 hour of performance is sometimes even a good situation to work, because you have to work fast, and but it's more related to one side of our production. The other side, which we are exploring more in this period, is that the privilege of spending time of your life in a situation, in a specific place, with a community, is something that the capitalistic system that we are a little bit obsessed with never give you the chance to have this privilege. And I can also answer to the first question, like why we do this, because as artists, I think that if I imagine my life as an artist that spent most of the time rehearsing in a room, I'm afraid about what I'm missing, what's going on outside in the world that I'm missing in my life. So using art as a in a documentary direction gives me the chance to spend my life with the people in the world, in the stories, with biographies, which I think is my only interest in this life. But time is fundamental. And about the just funny, your question about your attitude when we work. We can say that we have a funny balance in between our company, because I'm usually the cynical one.
Good cop, bad cop.
I'm the good cop.
He's the good cop. Really? He's the warm cop. I'm the cold cop. Our nickname in the factory was the cops, because we were hanging like around with the notebook and asking questions to the people. And I was always the one who said, no, we don't have to fall in love with the people, otherwise we will make some propaganda show. And Nicola is but then we sometimes we find out ourselves in a completely opposite situation, and it's very interesting when we change completely our role in the company. But yes, it's of course something that you really have to keep in mind, that you have to always switch from fall in love with the people, but at the same time cold a little bit the temperature. Otherwise, you will make a very cheesy performance, and nobody likes it.
Or when you have to say no, then you are not allowed to, or you don't feel allowed to, I would say. Like if you make a friendship that it's too...
Yep.
Yeah, I understand.
And then another thing that is needed to me is like, if you do it like the way we do, is like the main thing you do in your life, is a bit too modify your lifestyle. Like it becomes a bit pervasive. Pervasive? Invasive? No, it's pervasive, ma fatto così. But actually, you say that everything is fine. Okay.
It affects all aspects of your life.
Yeah, it's like a lifestyle. Like you know that for long periods you'll not be home. You'll build like temporary families that will absorb all your energy and your attention, and you should be available for that, which is not. I mean,
So
if you like it,
a lot of energy, basically.
it takes a lot of time and energy. Yeah.
I had something smart to say, but I forgot it. It was the pervasive thing. But the pervasive, I totally relate. Me and Anna, we're a couple, we have kids, and that's, yeah. So everything is everything, The life, we had to get an office when there were diapers on top of invoices, on top of pianos. And that was when okay, let's get an office. So that's something that really, really happens. And I don't remember the smart thing that I was going to say. No, it wasn't. But the empathetic bit of it is, I remember the smart thing now. The empathetic bit is very important. You really, like Marlene was saying, you really have to enjoy meeting people, their stories, and do something respectful with that. Honest, I would say, with that. If you don't, and there are some examples, I've seen it, usually you fail, and it's not good to anyone. So one thing that is necessary, and it's a little bit off topic, is we've done some international work abroad, and one thing that we find is very needed to our work is democracy. Whenever we work in a place that is, I would say, not a very mature democracy, where people censorship themselves, they don't put on the table their real desires and anguishes, and they don't talk about things, or they tell us it's forbidden to say this or that. Usually our work gets really hard, very difficult, because everything is very charged, and everything is, you know, very taboo, sacred, and you cannot really be playful with things, with subjects, with sounds. Yeah, we have several examples of that. So one, it's not a tool, but one thing that is needed for this, I think, or it's a little bit, makes it a little bit easier, is democracy.
Well, the tool could be having like a clear mind about what democracy is and how to put democracy into your work when you relate to people. Which leads me actually to another concrete subject that I would like to explore with you, which is about criticalities. Criticalities is right, like issues, problems you have with your work. We were discussing with Kepler because for this show, El Capitale, they had to replace a worker that dropped it with other 3 workers, which changes completely the show. Then I'll leave you the work. But maybe even, Marlene, you were saying something about the fact that at a certain point you end the work, you have to leave the project, but they are still there, and you have to find a way to detach from that. You will have other examples, we didn't have the chance to chat about it, but if you can bring some examples of issues or criticalities that you can encounter in this work, that maybe you can...
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, it's in a way what we talked about yesterday. I think had this border of everything what you do, of course, is because you want to make an artistic work. I mean, that is, of course, the goal. So even if you involve the whole world in your process, that's fantastic. But there always comes an end also to that. It's also work. That's also what we do. So, and of course, it happens that for maybe people who are in our process for a few months, for a period, they experience that as a life-changing thing, what is wonderful. But of course, sometimes for them, there's not an end to that. So I think, yeah, that's normal. I mean, I can also follow that. So sometimes that's hard, I must admit, because then you never want to have this feeling, what we said yesterday, that you feel like, now we used all these wonderful people and now we move on. But in a way, we have to move on. I mean, I think it's also our duty to move on. We have to. So I think that is maybe something. And another thing I was thinking, what can also be, I was thinking about your word democracy. Sometimes it's also too democratic. So then everybody can be the director. And then it's also sometimes really problematic that you have to say, you have all the space, but actually also till here, because otherwise we go crazy, because then we were 50 people saying, what's the next scene? And we will not survive. So that's also a weird kind of, distance and game with the space that you can give to the real world, in a way, in your artistic work. Yeah.
Thank you.
There are, let me just say that there are in Portugal good examples of participatory creations exactly like you described, where totally horizontal. We don't do that, but totally horizontal, with where every choice, every decision is, democratic, debated, and they get to places, really interesting places. It's a very hard thing to do, but I've seen it. You've seen it too, right?
I believe it exists.
Likewise.
For instance, in Porto, some months ago, there was a project, a 6-month project with a community in a neighborhood that was made entirely like that. Out of what people wanted to say, they started, debating things, experimenting for a long time. Every decision was only the technical.
It was from the administration, like a participative.
I'm not sure where I'm not sure where it came from, the invitation, okay. But that's what Matarazzo, that I talked about yesterday, defines as community art. What he defines as community art is that every other thing is, participatory or, but the thing that is completely democratic, he defines it like that. So it happens, it exists, but I totally get what you're saying about, drawing lines.
And also, I think we are also there sometimes to defend, I mean, I hope we do, an artistic quality of work, no? I mean, I think that's what we always try. So I think if you let everybody, I mean, I think it's also our task to say we have to bring the people we take with us on that level. For me, that also feels like that responsibility.
I relate with
have.
that in another sense. So just not to be condescending with that kind of work that is totally democratic, that sometimes has really incredibly artistic results. What I relate to that you're saying is that, for instance, a lot of times we hear that, in your work, the important thing is the process, not the result, and we really just disagree with all that. So the process probably is why we're on it, and we do it, and we love it. But the result is, in a way, what you give back to the people that are participating, and it must be the best result possible. It must be. So I relate to what you're saying. I don't know if the community art that I'm describing doesn't follow the same path of. I don't know if we can say that they kind of are apologetical or give away some bits of quality because of that. I think they have that in mind. I'm not sure how it works, but it does.
And what about the very big issue of our lives, which are expectations? I mean, as you said, we value the process, but we also value the output. But in this case, you have to deal with the expectations, like with your expectations, with the production expectation if you have a producer, and with the expectations, which are the more delicate, I suppose, of the people you are involving in your projects. For instance, with the workers, I suppose they had a lot of expectations about the fact that they were showing their story to the world through a piece of art.
No, actually, they didn't. No, I would expect, speaking about expectations, the same, but in the beginning when we started working with them, they haven't, like, we were saying we are going to do a theater show, and they were not impressed by that. So that I don't think they imagined what was it like. They started having expectations when we brought them for the first time in the theater, which is a national theater, is a huge, they thought probably we were working in a garage next to the factory, and because we present ourselves in that way, evidently. And but then something, I don't know, correct me if you have a different experience. People who has never been on stage, they don't really imagine how powerful can be this exchange that happens inside a theater. So they're usually surprised. And the audience too, this is interesting, in a certain way, the audience member that is watching a participatory show, like a non-professional actor acting, it kind of changes his expectations through the show or through the performance of the actor. So what all the time people tell us is unbelievable. They're not actors. So in a certain way, knowing, as you were saying yesterday, that you are dealing with non-professionals changes your sight through the show and lowers the expectation. And it's interesting because also the position of an actor, of a professional actor working with them, changes
completely. I mean, in general, when you are an actor, trained as an actor, and you go on stage, you have this, you know, very high expectation because you have been studying to do that particular thing in that particular way. But then you're dealing with someone who is going to fuck everything up and do everything different every time, change the lines, say different things. And this is much better because this lowers your expectations, and you're in my own eyes, I'm kind of justified, you know, because I'm dealing with something that is always changing, which, by the way, should be the posture of an actor all the time.
Exactly.
But then what happens is that we do not do that because we are lazy, because we have high expectation, because a certain level of performance, whatever it means, is required us. And so this fact that you are dealing with something unexpected, wild, lowers the expectation and makes the performance, in my opinion, better, at least in our
Well, you
experience.
get out from your comfort zone as well as they do, actually. So you share the non-comfort zone together, I suppose. I think it's at a certain point we have to talk about circus because we are in a circus context and because we have this project that involves circus artists too, as well as other participatory arts artists that are here with us. So I invite them also to make questions or speak, because for sure we are all together in this thing. But I would start with you because you are dealing with music, which has something more related to circus, which is the technique. I mean, doing theater, it could be like easier somehow because you use the word and you use the presence. But then using music with people that is not a musician is kind of the same of using circus and using body techniques with people that has never dealt with her or his body in this way, of course. So maybe you can talk about this experience you have.
I'm not entirely sure there is that. We just had a conversation where that issue of maybe, you know, there's a lot of rhythm in circus practices. There's a lot of, you know, musical stuff. I totally understand that, but I don't know anything about circus, so I cannot argue.
No, I'm asking about music.
In terms of music, what I feel is that it's an extraordinary way of everyone being part of something. So, because to the limit, if you can clap, you can join a group and you can do incredible things just with one clap, all together, phasing, rhythmically, textural-wise. If you can do a short sound, any short sound, you can do incredible stuff in a group, in a community. If you can do a short sound and a long sound, well, you have a vocabulary and you can use it in different, and if you put silence into it, that's it. You have, you know, the ground base to create something. On top of that, there's a technique, of course, very important, but sometimes overestimated. How do you say? In music, that puts you in that expectation device that you were talking about. So you are trained to only play what's written 300 years ago as it was written for a long time. And there's nothing wrong with that. When we do a group that claps, does a short sound, a long sound, maybe can sing a melody, of course we won't ask them to play what a virtuoso percussionist or what a piano player really does. They, of course, didn't have the training. But we can do incredible stuff with the short sound and the long sound, and the piano player can do challenging things within that. So I'm not entirely sure how circus relates with that. What I was saying in a conversation we were having, is that perhaps the trained guys would do something that can be within a performance that other people participate with doing other stuff that really changes the context and changes the performances and moves it to another place. They don't really have to do juggling that only people that train for 15 years do, of course. And it's not they don't have to. It's you can't make them do that. You have to protect the people that are participating from that, or else you will have that apologetical performance where people say, well, you know, they're not professionals, and so cute, exactly. One really fear that we have a lot in our, because sometimes, a lot of times, we work with, you know, disabled people. We have a project with deaf people, concerts and all. And what we really don't want to do is to have the audience saying, well, for deaf people, it's not bad. You know, that's awful. And that's why a lot of times in our performance, you don't know which are the professionals or which are not. You don't really know who's deaf and who's not. So that's I'm not sure how that translates to circus.
We would say, I would say, I don't know, maybe somebody from this audience today has something to say, in case there's a microphone, of course. Yeah, related to circus or not, as you wish. Because we are recording.
So it's a question for you, Compagnie Klepper. Yeah. I would like, and I'm also curious about you, all the artists around the table, not the table, the imaginary table. You didn't speak about your trust and the relationship you need absolutely to have, and it needs to be a balanced relationship. It's not you don't use the people, as you told. You need to create a relationship with the workers, and I would like to hear you about this, because I think this is really, really important. This is the beginning of your story, no?
Yeah, this is the question of the questions. I mean, it's completely the first thing that always is inside our conversation, how we can justify our presence in a place like a factory, in a group of people like workers that are occupying a factory. How we can arrive there and say, good morning, we are artists and we would like to work with you. They can say, oh, what the fuck you want?
And they did.
And
No,
they
but
did.
You are also a worker.
We are working, yes, that's true. Legitimacy is the point. I mean, having full access to a group of people is something that you have to fight for. It's when I was speaking about time, it's mainly about this, and it's something that is really something that is before the artistic work, before even start to think about the show. We spend a lot of time without thinking of anything artistic. I mean, we do, but it's a bit secret inside our brain, because, of course, you are always thinking about, oh, I can see these people. But we spend a lot of time just being there. We need to become part of the panorama. We started to live in the factory with the workers. We spent there in the beginning like 1 full month, sleeping with them in the factory, in sacco a pelo, in the sleeping bag, yes, and eating with them, being with them in the night shift, having hundreds and hundreds of conversations, drinking, getting drunk with them, and building a relationship in which they could trust us and we can trust them. And of course, the point is that we always start with the idea that we don't know nothing. Just like it's a very Socratic idea that we have to fight against every thing that we already have in mind, that we should arrive there and say, okay, let's have a blank page. We don't have no idea about what those people are doing here. We have to discover everything from the beginning. And I think that this gives, I mean, it's also something very human. And when Nicola was saying that it's something that transforms your life, it's about this, because you have to give them all your life, because they have a life. We don't. We are artists. We don't have a life, basically.
That's just our case.
In our case.
Just our case. It's not compositive. It's not mandatory.
Our biography is the artist's biography. And we have to give them our biography if we want to get their biography.
And also something like one of the reasons for which we find a way to tell that story, and that they always tell us, they always tell us, many people pass by this occupied factory. Some of them stopped for 1 day. Some of them stopped for. You are here from the beginning, and now that more than the half of the workers has already left the struggle, you are still here. And it's like a kind, and probably they know, at a certain point they understand that you are linked to that place, to that thing. One of the workers, I mean, in the beginning we were like fantasizing about our cast, about our the group of workers we wanted to, ask to come on stage with us, and pretty much is the group that ended up on stage. But one of the actors, probably like the one was at the most brilliant path in theater, in a personal actorial path with Iorio. We didn't speak with him for 1 month and a half. He didn't like us, and we didn't like him. We were scared because the metallurgic workers, there are some of them who are nice, and some of them are like metallurgic workers, like tough metallurgic workers that don't like you because you work in theater, and what the fuck you're doing there. And then after 1 month and a half, we were part, as Enrico was saying, of the panorama. And one night we started drinking, and then he ended up telling us the story of his life and crying. And in that moment, after 1 month and a half, a bond created that did not exist before. And it's chance, but it's also the fact that you insist. We insist a lot. We are terrible about that.
And another point is that we grow our desperation, and we really show ourselves very desperate when we have to work with some people. Like, we really need you.
Is it a tool?
Yeah. Because it's true. It's honest.
A journalist asked this old gypsy patriarch living in this residence where the council put the le persone sfrattate, the evicted people, and he has no work and he was living there. And the journalist asked him, why did you join this Kepler show? And he answered, because I pity them. But I think it was true, because when we try to make a show and the show doesn't arrive, we are really desperate. And they know that they can relieve this status, and so sometimes they do it also for that.
Empathy.
Empathy. Your empathy with us.
I have a curiosity, but I don't know if I have. Hello, my name is Zanester.
I'm not circus artist, neither performer, but I have been linked with the field one or another way. I'm not sure if my questions, it's not structured, but in the very beginning, I heard that there is this notion about artists go out from their own bubble. And I'm very curious about to hear from you, from anyone who wants to share, have you experienced, what does it mean for you to go out from this bubble? And how does it actually relate when we talk about these relations about artist, place, and community? So I would love to hear both from, well, the ones who is working closely in this participatory arts project, and also for the circus artist who actually is very, there is a lot of circus artists who is inhabiting the public spaces, which is the very vulnerable also in place. So I'm not directing someone, but I would love to hear opinions.
Thank you for that, because I think it relates a lot. When you apply for a project like this, means that you have a will to actually put yourself in the discomfort zone we were saying. So maybe, yes, somebody from the project, but also other ones.
I'm not thinking about people who are participants, I'm thinking about the artists.
Yeah.
Going out from their own.
Exactly. Yeah, I was saying that. I understood, thank you. I think I understood. Did I say it right? Yes.
Bellissimo, bellissimo Angelo.
No, I'm not an artist, so I cannot react.
But I think we can also answer it. Yeah. Do you want us to answer it as well?
Of course, it's not, I'm not directing the number, I'm curious because I heard from
Ricardo.
Don't worry.
I heard in the beginning. Is that the oh, okay. You mentioned that in the very beginning of the conversation. So, and this is something because, well, personally, I am very interested in cross-sectoral collaborations, and if we would talk about this also, you mentioned this cultural as a human rights, etc. So it means actually very much how do we go out and out of this bubble? What is the culture in a certain perception? We think, well, the ones who is in a field or who is participating, and there's a field. There's also the ones who is not. So, but I'm really interested about, as from artist perspective, what does it mean for you to go out from your own bubble?
It means several different things. I'm again not sure I can articulate it very well. One thing is there's a lot of preconcepts that we have about places and people. So that's one thing. We go to a small town in the interior of Portugal with this preconceived idea that, you know, what is culture there, what is the artistic expression there, how people manage to live their daily lives with or without this artistic life, and we usually are very surprised with what happens there, what culture they have to offer, what kind of tools they still have, and relations and routines. I meant they have that are so much more engaged with what we are now trying to get back to, in terms of community, in terms of doing a circle, in terms of the encounter, this idea of dialogue, of meeting people, doing something together. So that's one thing, the preconcepts that we are always destroying when we work outside of our usual field. And the other thing is, in terms of the proper artistic technique, there's also really huge surprises. So on one way or another. So for instance, you're out of desperation, like you were saying, you're forced to try things out that you would never try in terms of your technique, your art, and so you try new things, and by that I mean sometimes you connect your narrative, the thing you're creating, with things that you would never connect before. You create bridges with, you know, more daily issues that come up, and in the end are very interesting, and the performance becomes another thing. And in terms of the way you approach your art, your craftsmanship, you have to change a lot. You have to be very flexible and you know, try things all the time. So that for us is very interesting. It's very demanding and very problematic. We suffer a lot also, but we don't complain. It's what you said. If I imagine myself just, you know, having to learn how to play actually something in music, and to, you know, then do that for a lot of hours a day, I prefer this, the thing.
For me, from an external point of view, because I'm not an artist at all, I think the artists that are choosing this path are becoming activists. And Caterina Morone, who is here, I remember she was defining herself at a certain point as an activist, which is not a pretentious word. I think it's a very concrete word, which means you activate other people, literally. And then, of course, you have a political side, whatever it is, and you have a political impact. But as soon as you practice with other people in this way, I think you get out from the artistic world and you enter the activism, which is something that is still very much needed, I think. But that's really like my personal opinion.
The only thing I don't agree is that you have to get out of the art world to get to the activist world. I think
from the niche, I would say.
I think all art is activism in a way or another. All art, yeah, in a way or another.
To add, oh, sorry. I just wanted to add that there's a term, artivism. So maybe it's more to
Artivism.
Artivism, okay. Yeah. So, and it describes us who work in society with the social active processes, but with a form in art.
And I would also always say, if you talk about the bubbles, that we should not make it too holy, that it should not be too big. It's something, I think, very concrete, actually, what we do. And that's also how we try to approach art. So if I'm going to talk about art with somebody who doesn't know anything maybe about art, because this person didn't do that, that doesn't mean that I come from another world or another level. I really don't believe that. So I think it's very important always to, maybe the word I would use always in a way of being humble, but always just make it playful. Just be yourself and just talk to somebody else. It's not so difficult. Sometimes we make like, oh, and now the artists are going. What do you mean? I mean, I'm just going to talk to you and we have a beer, and then I will explain you, and I will explain you what we're going to do, and then you are going to say, oh, what a nice idea, of I don't understand anything of what you say, and then we continue. So for me, it's also very playful and very concrete, actually, this breaking bubbles, and not too complex. For me, that's very important, not to make it too complex.
I think I never break my bubble. Even I go outside somewhere else, I stay in my bubble. I don't believe that I can jump out of my bubble. I always then discuss with other artists, and sometimes we are making jokes about where we was, or sometimes we cry about it, but we stay in our bubble. We never leave it. Even you 2 years in fabric, you stay in your bubble.
But it's a choice, or is something that is happening to you? You are your bubble.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it, but and another thing I think is that there is no difference what kind of art you make. Is it participatory or it's something like that, or you just made a play on a stage? It's always political decision to do it. It's a politic. What are you doing? You're choosing this kind of a way or that kind of a way. It's just a form, because I have done in very different ways, and always form comes because of idea. The idea is the first what I want to tell or what I want to reach, and then I choose a form. Is I'm going make a documentary with the people having in a show, or just collecting their stories, or I just take a play and then added some texts or thoughts from documentary or a life, or don't added, just use this play and do it. So yeah, it's all, for me it's always just idea. Which
In your work, you mean, in the way you work?
yeah,
All
yeah.
We completely agree with you. In fact, in Il Capitale, around 3/4 of the show, I state exactly the same thing. We came here to get out of our bubble, but we didn't succeed. But we state it on the stage with them. So this contradicts a bit the fact that we are there, but at the same time, I completely agree with you. You don't actually get out of your bubble, because then you come back to your house and with the people you know in your city, which is a specific city, doing your life, which is a specific like, being an artist, which is a specific job. So yeah, let's say that you don't break your bubble, but you make an excursion in others' bubble, which is still quite interesting.
I kind of agree. Let me just say what Marlene was saying, that we need to kind of lower a little bit. It's not a complex thing. It's not like to break a bubble doesn't mean we're finding new worlds. It's just that we start a conversation in a way that doesn't happen all the time. But it's not a very complex thing. It's a very humbling and normal thing to do.
But a circus artist could tell you that acrobatic things are not difficult, because they do it every day and they're trained for that. So maybe for us that we have been doing this for a long time is normal. But I know people that engaging in conversation with an unknown person without reacting too much to anything he says is pretty much impossible.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Matteo, Dinamico Festival from Italy, for the ones who don't know me. Regarding this, but actually regarding, I think, everything we're saying today, it is simple for me, the idea that we can use circus as well for participatory activities. You were saying something very interesting before regarding music. That there is a method studying the music of 300 years ago, which is not bad per se, but I'm sure that if you go at some point in time, there is someone that would state the same about music. So no, you cannot use music as a participatory tool, no? Because it's impossible to teach piano to someone in 3 hours. But I'm sure that it existed also in theater. No, it's impossible. Theater, you do it in theaters. You cannot use it. So I was speaking with Anna also before, speaking about research, and we just have to research. Can I make a quick example? Do we have time? In our hometown, we work with a neighborhood, and we spent time, which is absolutely the basic tool to do this stuff, gathering stories, personal histories about individuals, communities, blah, 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 there, about this neighborhood. And we gave all the stories which we recorded to a circus company that within just 1 week was supposed to make a itinerante, a walking tour, sort of.
Itinerante.
Yeah.
No, itinerante no, è l'unica cosa.
But I have the translation, so it seems.
Ambulatory. I don't know.
We had a lot of spaces to cross, and we had a place like this, and in this we played some aerial acrobatics, some complex things, some simple things for those who were able and those who were not able to do it. It was nice. But we had also a place which was the center of the Islamic community, which was an amazing place in terms of architecture. And we were already thinking, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that, and that, you're using that circus technique, that circus. But spending time with them, we realized that they prefer to tell stories about them and with the audience, that would have come there. And we asked ourselves what was our original objective, to tell the stories of the neighborhood, to cross these spaces. And we used the body of the participants to transform them into tables or things over which sweets and foods were that were provided by the people from the Islamic community that they wanted to offer this sweets and food were able to be put. So the participants came and they listened actually, so the protagonists became the usual inhabitants of the space. And I absolutely have no idea if this is circus, but we were using the bodies. It was led by a circus company, and how we started this was spending 2 months of our time just going to the bar, staying there, making ourselves known, asking also indirectly the permission to gather these stories. And after 2 weeks, we spoke with the barman of this place, and he said to us, "Oh, I was happy with that you came to speak to me because I always saw you there, and usually I always speak with old people and immigrants too, so it's nice to speak with you," which is maybe not the best start that you expect, but it's a start, no? And so yeah, time, absolutely fundamental tool, but we have to research, and I'm sure it's possible to use this. And maybe one day we will also get rid of labels, which is in performing arts, which will be also a nice objective for me.
Julia, if I can add a thing about the activism thing, I think that this participatory theater makes particularly urgent the question of what's my position, politically speaking, in the sense of what the position, which interests the creation I'm preparing is serving, in which part of the political spectrum is located. And I think it's particularly urgent because politics ask our intervention. So we should ask ourselves, what's the point? Why they're asking us? Why there is this request of participatory theater? What politics thinks participatory theater is useful for? And how do we want to be part of that project? And I think this is a particularly important question to ask ourselves when we are funded by European or government funds. So what politics is asking us? Romanian, I would say, director told us this story. In a city in Romania called Cluj, they built this wall to divide a rich neighborhood from a poor neighborhood. And then the time passed, and people started having mixed feelings through this wall. And so they asked a school of art to decorate this wall. And at a certain point, the political condition was mature for trying to propose to eliminate this wall. But then someone said, "Oh, come on, it's so beautiful. It's decorated by the local school of arts." So I think that we really run the risk, in general as artists, but particularly as participatory artists, and particularly as participatory artists founded by the European Union, to be like those guys of the art of school, decorating walls that are dividing rich from poor people, and decorating devices invented for means that maybe we do not share. But being aware of your role, I think, is the most tiring and difficult part of our work. Not to end up decorating walls.
That's a big risk, yes, thank you. I completely agree, and that's why also I think we have a big, huge responsibility, not just because we are using public money, but also because we are exposing the audience and ourselves to certain things to do it properly, but with a strong consciousness. Absolutely.
Hello. Sebastian, my name. I have a question about like co-authorship. Like in our company, when we work, there is artists on stage and they share the responsibility of the authorship of the piece. And this is usually a smaller group, so it's manageable in a democratic way. And also these people have certain levels of experience in this. But if you work with your local heroes, I think at some point you need to take kind of the lead because they don't know how to create a theater piece or a circus piece. Is this correct? Or how do you deal with this to keep it democratic in the sense that the base stories are authentic, but you have to make it into a product, a piece of art, which is your expertise, not theirs? I guess metal workers don't have so much opinion on dramaturgic arcs. Or
They do.
They do? All right. But you keep it till the end democratic? Or is there a point where you say, okay, guys...
We don't. No.
And when does this come in the process?
No, I think it's very organically, actually. Because I think all the process that you do together is already, if I would ask you to join me, it means we are already in a different situation. Because I can always say, this was, in a way, an idea I have, and I'm inviting you to join. So we are already on a different start. It's not that you and me invented the idea. So I think already from the beginning that you create together with other people material, in a way you will, I think, in a way you will always already push it somehow in an idea that you have. And I think that's also, I mean, I hope that's also the strength that we have. And that they, in a way, yeah, how can I say it? That they will be on the same level in the sense of how we create the material, but the dramaturgy or the style or everything, the context, will be, in our case, for example, is invented by a collective with an idea. So I think it's quite organic. It's not that in the end that then all of a sudden we're going to say, no, I'm sorry, now we're going to do how we think it's going to be. I mean, that would be terrible. I think it's from the beginning. It's honest. It's saying, this is an idea. Do you want to join? So for us, it's very much like that. Yeah.
But even if you have like 30 people, 50 people,
yeah,
you go through this, keep it open, and
yeah, because I think it's also super interesting that, of course, people come with things that we would never think of course. And on the other hand, I think it's, yeah, what I said before, that it's also our duty to keep it on an artistic level, what we try to reach together with these people. I mean, otherwise, I would also feel like, hey, you want to join me? Now you also have to say what's going to be the next scene. I would never dare to ask somebody who is not coming maybe from that field. Why would I? It's not a fair question, I think. I will be there and I can help you, let's do it together. But I'm there also to help in a way. I think it's, I mean, yeah, for me that also feels like that's a fair way of working together, because otherwise people could be lost, I think, as well. Yeah.
Let me, just in terms of authorship, like formal or authorship, who signs, for instance, like author of a song that we've just done with a community of 40 people. There's a lot of debate around that, and we have, colleagues that just say, well, I'm the author, even, and I totally respect and understand that, but having said that, we never sign up like authors of those songs, and that leaves, so, for instance, like authors. For instance, there is a show that we just did in the south of Portugal, and because there's a way of singing in the south of Portugal called cante, which is very, specific and special, there was kind of a way of doing things for them to sing. And we created a song all together with things they said on the street, and then they sang, and I thought, well, there was a lot of work as a composer, as a musician, to compose something that sounds like that. I've never done that, so I felt I was the composer. I was, putting all my musical effort on that, but at the same time, I couldn't sign it as a author. And the door it opened was that one that in the end they said, well, we're going to sing these in our shows now, because one was a singing group, male singing group. They said, we're going to sing these in our shows now forever. And I was like, that's my thing. Okay, I'm not the author. They said things, they sang things that I used there, and then I put it together, but I couldn't really sign it as an author. So it's a very difficult question. I don't have an answer.
Madam?
No, it was just to share that some years ago we were creating a circus school in Cape Verde. There was a director from a street theater company from Rio that came to make the opening. And while she was there, we used to work together with the circus groups. There was one, and then there were 3 others. They got all together. And then she invited a group of batucadeiras, which are women which make a specific music in Cape Verde, and to integrate the circus. And there was a chorus of women which were also invited. And then she invited also the percussion from there were young groups, young musicians from different surroundings that had percussion groups, and so she invited them. So at the end it was like 100 persons, and they were all very happy because usually those women used to go playing by themselves. They were invited and there would be other companies playing. Then the chorus also, they felt somehow lonely in their universe, like the musicians were. And there they were part of a bigger thing, and then they started working together, which was very nice. It was not that they had been making it, it was that organic, there was organic created, and what they felt was that they were happy to be part, that they could work with the circus, in the circus universe, and all together create something else. It was just that.
Thank you very much. So I think it's enough for today. Of course, I invite everybody to follow this project that is just the beginning. In the next year, we will have 4 residencies with the artists that are part of the project, and hopefully we will have something to show to the world. So please keep in touch with betacircus.eu if you want to follow our work. And yeah, let's have a break. Thanks to everybody, and thanks to you guys. Thank you very much.